Hey, yo, welcome back. This is still not a podcast. It's just my thoughts with Rob Markman. Shout out to everybody who watches, who especially watched the last episode. It was an hour long as I read that 81-page document. So shout out to y'all who stuck with it. I definitely had doubts whether or not anybody would want to watch an hour of me just kind of going through court documents. So shout out to everybody who watched. Today, man, I want to talk and celebrate, just an amazing artist who is no longer with us, a friend of mine, Mac Miller. On Friday, a new Mac Miller album release. It's called Balloonerism. And while it's technically a posthumous album, because it was released after he passed in 2018, Balloonerism is a project that Mac put together while he was still alive, and he did intend to release it at some point. A lot of time when an artist dies, the estate or the family or the label, whoever has control of the music, starts pulling together, scraps of unfinished songs or songs that weren't meant to be heard or songs that maybe didn't have a home and start just pulling them together into an album to put something out for fans. And, look, sometimes the reality is to make money, to help support the family. This isn't that. This is an album that Mac intended to release. This is something that he had left behind that was fully fleshed out. It's a beautiful album. I'm gonna be honest, it was tough for me to listen to. It was bittersweet because while it feels great to hear his music, it feels like a visit from an old friend that you haven't heard in a while. It has his humanity in there, just his musical genius in there, has lyricism in there, humor. There's funny moments in the album, just like kind of one-liners or whatever, and has his pain in there. It hurts too because there's an emotional weight. Mac was someone, like I know a lot of y'all, so many of y'all are like real fans, and with that fandom and listening to his music, you're really connected. So I imagine it's emotional for y'all as well. And for me, it's that. Plus, I mean, he's someone who I knew personally. He became more than just an artist I would interview. He was a friend for real. Like, he was really my friend. So I'm gonna talk about the project a bit and maybe share some old stories with y'all in the process. But the album dropped on January 17th, just 2 days before January 19th, which is today, which is Malcolm's birthday. And he would have been 33 years old, had he lived on. So, look, Balloonerism is an album that the fans knew about. Some of it leaked online. Some of the tracks that leaked would have metadata attached to it with the date and the album name. Do You Have a Destination was one of those tracks that leaked. And, the project was recorded after Watching Movies with the Sound Off, which dropped in 2013. And before Faces, which dropped in 2014. If you listen to it just musically, stylistically, you could hear its relation to Faces. Like, I think, it becomes apparent that, this was recorded around the same time. Mac was so serious about releasing the project that he actually even got the cover made, the cover that we see here. I mean, he got that made. He was the one who got that commissioned by artist Aleem Smith, and had him paint the cover. And Donna Claire Chessman's The Book of Mac. And I have the book somewhere. I had moved recently, so a lot of stuff is in boxes. But Donna, they sent me this reader's copy, so I have this Book of Mac. But I had it somewhere. I didn't know what it was, but in her book. And shouts to her. I had met her. She was writing for DJ Booth at the time when I met her, but she wrote this book, The Book of Mac. And Quentin Cuff, shout out to Q. It's my man too. That's Mac's childhood friend. It's my boy for real. Q talked about the album in this book. I'll read the quote. He says, Mac and Josh Berg is an engineer. Mac and Josh Berg were cooped up in the bottom studio. And that's Mac's studio in his LA house. He says they were cooking up very zany, otherworldly, weird creations. There's that album Balloonerism that was probably made before Faces. A lot of it was supposed to be Faces, and then Balloonerism is its own thing. There's so many albums during that time that were in the thought process. The thing that hit me about this album was just like how genuinely it was Mac. There's humor on it. Like I said, like he was funny for real. but he had this deep outlook on life too, and he would always say these like profound things and give good advice and perspective to his friends. You know, I was a lot older than him, but he saw things that I haven't seen in my life, and he had a special way of expressing those things, just amongst his friends, but then had a really special way of expressing those things, especially in music. I first met Mac right around the time he dropped Kids. Might have been that same week, that was that same time. And it was on a trip to NYC. He was with my boy Artie Pitt. Artie Pitt used to work at Rostrum with Benji Grimberg. Artie's still a friend of mine. He's doing hot sauce right now. Shout out to Artie. Shout out to Artie's hot sauce. So I worked at Double XL at the time, and Artie brought Mac up just to introduce his new artists around. And, you know, they already had Wiz Khalifa, and they had a lot of success. So I was already posting Mac's music on doublexlmag.com, on the Double XL site, but I hadn't met him yet. So we kind of hit it off right away. Met him. He came up to the office. We chilled. We kicked it. We laughed. Listened to music. Later that day, I went to Static Selector's crib in Brooklyn. And, you know, he was recording that day, and Matt came through. Terminology came through. And they did that song, 82 to 92. I feel like Freeway was there that night, too. I feel like that was all in the same night. I could be wrong. And I feel like Freeway was there that night too, and they did the PA song, but that could have been a different night. You know, we spent a couple of nights in Static's crib just making music. And I remember Q, that very first night though, I remember Q played me Donald Trump. Shout out to Sap, produced by Sap. And when he played me that record, I just knew it was going to be a big record. We knew. And I remember that night, Static told me that he bets Mac makes the Double XL freshman cover. And I was like, we'll see, but he absolutely made it. And, you know, at that time, freshman cover was a big thing, and people would always come up to me and pitch their artists for the freshman cover. So, you know, I didn't want to sell anybody any false hopes. It was a profit, but it was a process, but I remember Static being like, yo, Mac's going to be on the freshman cover. I'm just like, dog, we'll see. But he absolutely made it. He absolutely deserved it. I remember Artie, too, at the time telling me, like, yo, Rob, do a song with Mac. Like, when I was in Static's crib. He was like, yo, make sure y'all do a song together. But I just didn't want to come out and push to do a song right away. It just felt weird for me. The guy from Double XL wants to do a song with you. I took my job really seriously, and I didn't want to blur the lines at all. And while getting to record with Matt would have been really special for me, being able to tell his story the way I did as a journalist, just, you know, in the interviews that we have, that was special to me too. So, you know, he was a kid then, but I watched him grow from a kid. And I remember when he dropped Macadelic, it was like in 2012. I realized that he was more than just a kid. Like, he was like beyond his years. He sent me that project early. And he used to send me most of his projects early, or invite me to the studio, invite me to the house to listen. And he sent me Macadelic early, and I noticed that was more musical than the things he had dropped before. And he started talking to me about the Beatles music and how the Beatles inspired him. And I had never actually sat and listened to the Beatles. And I remember Mac was the one like, oh, hell nah. He was like, nah, you got to listen to Sgt. Pepper's and all of that. So he kind of put me on. Of course, I knew who the Beatles were, but he kind of like really put me on the Beatles. I say all that to say, you know, Balloonerism, like, a lot of his later albums reflected that there was something deeper with bro. Like, you know, if you're starting with Kids, or if you even start before Kids with Mac, like, you just see the progression. Like, you really see him grow up in his music. So right from the intro, Tambourine Dream is the intro. You see that the music here is front and center, that this is going to be a musical album. There's no lyrics on it. It's just, you know, him. And shout out to Thundercat, who's all over this album. It's just a very musical album. Mac produced, you know, as Larry Fishman on it. So just a very musical album. So it starts with Tambourine Dream, DJ's chord change. Again, music is like right front and center. Mac and Josh are calling out notes at the intro. They're like B flat, you know, F flat, or whatever the notes are. SZA's on this record, on DJ's chord change. You could tell this is a young SZA. This sounds like Z era SZA, if y'all remember the Z mixtape or album, or however they labeled it. When she's singing that, like, that refrain on the song, on this song, to Tell Me the Truth About It, in her verse, it reminds me of her tone and her cadence on Babylon, off of the Z project, which Babylon is one of my favorite SZA songs ever. Do You Have a Destination's on here? Like I said, it leaked a few years back. Full disclosure, I never listened. The first time I'm hearing Do You Have a Destination is on this project. I was aware of it. I had heard of it. But I just don't keep up with links like that, with leaks like that. Like, I don't, for a couple of reasons. One, I'm just like, okay, did the artist intend for this to be out? Like, a lot of times leaks are like undone, unmixed, and I just don't want it to taint the artist for me. And then leaks are just hard to keep up with. But I don't listen to a lot of leaks like that. And so that's one. But two, it's just been hard for me to listen to Mac's music. I used to listen to Swimming like every day when it dropped, and it was my wake up album every day when it dropped. And when Mac passed, I just couldn't press play anymore. I actually spoke to him too, like a day or two before he passed. And maybe it was 2 days, maybe it was 3 days. And it was just a good, happy conversation. We just talked about like how things were going in our lives. And I remember telling him, like, dude, I listen to Swimming every day. Like, I wake up and listen to the album every day. And after he passed, it just got harder to listen to. But, so when I first hear the song, just going back to Do You Have a Destination, like in the context of the album, it makes me smile and it makes me sad at the same time. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, in verse 2, when he says, okay, I went to sleep famous and I woke up invisible, rich as fuck and miserable. At least I did Kimmel and Arsenio. My mom got it on video. Man, that... First of all, the rhyme, I love the rhyme pattern, just this kind of sound of his voice and the cadence that he always uses. But that was him, man. I was like, damn, that's right. He did do Arsenio. Because at first I was like, yo, Arsenio. Like, Mac is way young. Arsenio's from the 90s. I remember that they had brought Arsenio back and he did Kimmel. Like, and he was doing all that late night shit. And my mom got it on video. It just made me smile because I know how important his mom was to him and how special their relationship was and how proud she is of him. I spent a good amount of time with his mom as well. And we had our own kind of just friendship and things. And she would always just talk about how proud she was of him. So that just made me think of how far he came. But then there's like the hints of difficulty that he was having in his life, right? Like rich as fucking miserable. It's just like the bitter sweetness of this album to me, right? But it's all human. Mac casually mentions death a good amount of times on this album, and then that shit is hard. Like it is like kind of the death or the depression, the struggles, the addiction, and then we get the humor. You know what I'm saying? Like my bitch have a nightmare, wake up, made me some cereal. She knows I love my cereal. Like that was just funny to me, and then the ad lib right after that, she know it. Like Mac's ad lib, like it just makes me laugh. And then we kind of go from that to, am I okay? Fuck no. Just so nuts, so need to let the drugs go. Trying to find heaven. I get high but never come close. And that's the duality of it for me and how he used to struggle. And it wasn't so much of his music, but again, he could still be this funny guy that looks on the bright side but still acknowledge his struggles and it's the duality of him. Then, just bars, right? Then he just give us bars. He says, we still wonder why we'll never learn to love. It's because all the air is filled with gun smoke. A middle finger to the cyber guards, fall back, or I'm going to fuck around and let this virus off. In the mud, fuck your brainwash. I'm signing off. Can't kill a god with an upload. Just bars, too. Like, dude was nice. Like, you listen to this, like, dude could really fucking rap, dog. And, again, that's what I love about this album. It's almost like a complete list. Like you see every side of him in this album. So it's a good way to remember him. Then he has this other song, Miss Deborah Downer, where he says, oh, well, redemption is a funny bitch. The devil always be right where the money is. And I'm like, damn, that's like Mac for real. Like, yes, he grew as a musician, but he's a fucking rapper. Money is the root of all evil. We heard it a million times. He wasn't going to tell you money is the root of all evil. He's going to flip it to redemption is a funny bitch. The devil always be right where the money is. Like, and to me, that's a bar. I don't give a fuck. So you get the bars on this, right? But then you get, again, and I'm just going back and forth, like how effortlessly on this, he kind of goes back and forth through the things that are going on in his life. He says, my best friend packed his things, threw him in the car, I haven't seen him since. Guess I understand. He always gets the chills when he see a room full of rolled up $100 bills. The addiction, right? Like, damn, I lost my best friend. He gets the chills when he see a room full of rolled up $100 bills. You know what I'm saying? And then you come later, in the song, he says, started smoking weed again, started trying to read again, clean myself up. Now would you be my friend? It's kind of that push and pull, right? The addiction of losing friends, trying to make it right. Like, you know what I'm saying? Clean myself up. Now would you be my friend? Like, that shit is so real, man. And I don't get high. I used to smoke weed. I don't really smoke anymore. Took mushrooms once, but that's about it, right? I never really fuck with drugs. So my relationship with him wasn't drug related at all. And I never got high with him. It was never like that. We might have smoked once. I might have smoked once with him, once or twice. But I often didn't see that side of him. You know what I'm saying? Our friendship wasn't that. I often didn't see that side of him, but we had conversations about it for sure. About addiction. We had conversations about it that I won't divulge in, but that line just felt so real. Started smoking weed again, started trying to read again, clean myself up. Now would you be my friend? Like, it's just a struggle. Then it's just like on Shangri-La, just going back to kind of his humor and how he was, right? And again, I'm just saying this album kind of just, there's so much on it, and it just goes effortlessly back and forth because that's who he was. Like, Shangri-La starts and it's just the ad-libs on top of the record, right? Like how funny he was and how he would give you a jewel. So at Shangri-La, just at the top, right? Like, if you listen, he starts talking, don't be afraid to put your 2 cents in. You might not be able to afford anything, but I'm always up for a bargain. Like, it's just him talking. That wasn't a bar. He's like, don't be afraid to put your 2 cents in. You might not afford nothing, but I'm always up for a bargain. And he starts talking about the dragons flying south for the winter. They don't like the cold weather either. It was just like weird, right? But there was a jewel in there. Like, that was Mac, though. He would just say shit in regular conversation. Like, you be talking and he would just interject. Like, don't be afraid to put your 2 cents in. You might not be able to afford nothing, but we all love a bargain. And you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it would just be funny, but it would be real and you'll laugh. But it's also profound. I shared a story once. When we met, I was working at Double XL, and a couple of years passed. We did the freshman cover that he was on, and then I left to go to MTV News. And as soon as I got to MTV News, I started booking Mac for MTV interviews. Like, that might have been the first time that he was up at MTV, but I used to have him come up to MTV regularly. It might not have been his first time, but he definitely was coming regularly once I got there. So the way it worked on MTV was that I would interview artists on camera, and I'd be off camera. So the artist would be on camera. I would be behind the camera off asking the questions. And we'll cut up the interview in pieces and put them on the internet. So he would always tell me, he'd be like, man, get on camera with me, man. Get on camera with me. Why can't you be on camera with me? Sway is on camera all the time. Why can't you? When I interview with Sway, he's on camera. I want you on camera with me. And he always used to bug me. And I would just be like, nah, because that just wasn't part of my job. I didn't want to overstep. My job wasn't to be on camera when I first got to MTV. So one day he comes in and he's with all his peoples. Q was there, Tree J was there, Willie Whips was there, Jimmy was there, and all of us were cool. So it was all love, and we would joke, we have a good time. And he comes in mad serious, and he's like, "Yo, what's up, Tuft? Tuft, what's up? What's up, Tuft?" So I'm like, "Man, what the fuck is Tuft?" And he's like, "Oh, that's your new name, you DJ Tuft." And I just came up with it. You know what I'm saying? You DJ Tuft. But he was mad serious, right? Like he's just saying it serious. And I'm just waiting for the punchline. But then he starts to smile and laugh because he can't hold the joking anymore. And he definitely was the type that used to like laugh at his own jokes. And he was like, yeah, you DJ Tuft. T-U-F-T. He spells it out. He says, too ugly for TV. And we all just started like cracking up, laughing. Because he starts dying, I start dying. Like, what the fuck? Like, it was a joke and it was funny. But it was a jewel because it was him telling me that I needed to be on camera. He got sick every time I'm coming to MTV. He comes to MTV. He's like, get on camera. And I wouldn't do it. And then he was like, oh, DJ Tuft, you too ugly for TV. Like, you ugly. That's why you're not on camera. but it was him pushing me and telling me like to make that part of my career, and he was right, and he helped push me. You know what I'm saying? I'll tell y'all another quick story, man. And I know this is supposed to be about the album, but this is everything, man. By the time I'm at Genius, Mac is living in Brooklyn, not far from the Genius office. So he would come hang out from time to time, or I would go hang out at his crib after work. And anyway, fast forward, we started to do this series on Genius called Verified. Y'all seen it with the yellow background where the artist explained his lyrics. And we had a pilot episode with Designer that actually took off. But when we officially launched the series and called it Verified, and the first week, you know, we wanted to shoot like some dope artists for the first week so we can launch with. So the first week we had 21 Savage, we shot with Zara Larson, and we shot with Mac. Now, like these days, everybody wants to be on that show. Everybody wants to be at Genius. But back then, nobody wanted to be on the show because they didn't know what it was. They didn't understand the concept of just sitting there explaining your lyrics. And Mac definitely didn't want to do it. Like, absolutely did not want to do it. And I was just like, bro, like, as a friend, like, I need this. I'm trying to get this shit off the ground. Yo, I need this. Do me this solid. And he came through and he did it. So we're breaking down Dang. He had the song Dang with Anderson .Paak, right? And I asked him to break down the line. He has that line, won't get Hall of Fame dick from a minor league dude. I just eat pussy, other people need food. So, you know, I'm just like, all right, break down that line. And this was his response. I'm going to play it for you.
You can go on an all-pussy diet. It's not the healthiest thing. There's not a lot of nutrients.
I don't think this is scientifically, biologically possible.
Yo, it is. It is. Like a pussy and some almonds. Just to get you through the day. Maybe a granola bar.
Yeah, he was. So he's just really funny, man. He was always like hilarious, man. And but you know, there was the profoundness in there. But you know, back to Balloonerism. Funny Papers is just classic Mac Miller, and the storytelling is beautiful. Like Funny Papers is sad, but it's so vivid. And man, I just love the verse. He's like, yeah, somebody died today. I saw his picture in the Funny Papers. Didn't think anybody died on a Friday. Some angry banker, some kind of money trader, recently divorced, was drunk driving down the highway and drove off the bridge to his wedding song. Blew out the bass in his speakers. You could still hear the treble going. The hospital was useless and everything was quiet, but the music, like, is dark, right? But it's there's something so poetic about the verse, and it's definitely dope rhyming. It's definitely dope storytelling. Like, it's something that you could see, and just the way he kept the music in it. Recently divorced, was drunk driving down the highway and drove off the bridge to his wedding song. Blew the bass out his speakers. You could still hear the treble going. The hospital was useless and everything was quiet, but the music, it's just beautiful. And then the hook, like the way he sings the hook, right, is if I could just pay my rent by Tuesday, I bet I'll be rich by April Fool's Day. It's just kind of classic Mac Miller. And then Excelsior comes after that, and to me that's just more classic Mac. Just him reminiscing on being a kid before like innocence gets corrupted, right? And then, you know, so he's just telling the story of all these kids on the playground, which kind of reminded me of, you know, the playground, like Blue Slide Park was such a big part of him just coming up, kids in Blue Slide Park. So, you know, that reminiscing, that wanting to be a kid again, that being young, that holding on to that innocence, I think was a big part of his narrative. So that's why I think Excelsior is so dope. And he's telling the story of these kids on the playground. And then he says, before there was rules, before there was limits, your only enemies was some Brussels sprouts and spinach. And I'm just like, damn, that's such a dope way to put it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so Funny Papers and Excelsior are my two favorite. Like, on this, like that section of the album is my favorite section. Those are my two favorite songs on the album so far. Rick's Piano is a reference to Rick Rubin and his Shangri-La studio. There's also Shangri-La on here, and you know, Mac spent the summer with Rick. He did an interview with Grantland, and he talked about one time that he drunk dialed Rick and was just like, Rick, I'm fucked up, will you help me? And then he went, you know, to Rick Rubin's crib and spent the summer and said, and you know, this was in a Grantland interview. He said he got clean and he would just go to Rick's house every day and just sit and play the keyboard. So, you know, Rick's Piano is a reference to that. the song is beautiful too, but it's hard to hear, especially when Mac starts singing "What Does Death Feel Like" over at the end. And then "Tomorrow We'll Never Know" is just kind of like the end, like this dream, like it like ends on a dream. Like I don't know how to describe it, but the album is beautiful. It just really, like I said, feels like a visit from an old friend who you haven't seen in a long time. It's just really, really bittersweet, man. But heavy on the sweet part. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was, like I said, it was tough to listen to. I don't know if y'all had that experience. It was tough to listen to, but it's such a beautiful album. He's such a beautiful dude. So definitely recommend it, man. It's a great way to kind of celebrate his birthday and celebrate for his fans. And but let me know what y'all think, man. I know a lot of y'all out there, longtime Mac Miller fans. A lot of y'all always ask me in the comments about him, especially when I used to have the plaque on the wall. But I ordered some vinyl too, the Balloonerism vinyl. So when that comes, I'm definitely gonna put that on the wall. But let me know what y'all think in the comments. What's your favorite songs, man? What's your favorite memories of Mac Miller? Go off, all right? Happy birthday to my friend, man, and love to y'all. Peace.